Hello. So we almost at the end and the fifth session of today Mazovia Circular Congress, which is called COVID and Circularity, a booster to promote more circularity for businesses, or is it the transition being delayed? This session is supposed to be moderated by Harald Fried from Circular Economy, former CEO of Circular Economy. Unfortunately, I think his connection is pretty bad, so we couldn't keep him online. So this is my privilege now to moderate this panel discussion. And I would like to welcome in our studio great guests. So we have here Pan Marek Sumiła, Market Director, Poland and Baltic from Danone. We have Agata Czachórska, Country Sustainability Manager, IKEA. We have Ricco Fiorito as CooLoo. This is furniture, sustainable furniture company. And Dirk Aarts, Managing Partner, 24/7 PR communication company. And we have online connected Dion Vijgeboom from Mad Jeans. Dion, can you hear us? Are you there? I'm not sure. Do we have Dion with us, or?
I can hear you guys perfectly well, but
now we can hear you as well. So it's good.
Great.
Okay, so please let's go to our discussion. So first question to all panelists: is there a chance for more circularity, and why? Maybe we start from Marek.
Good day to you. Thanks for the question. If COVID is the chance for circularity, I believe that's a huge chance for the business to accelerate the changes. COVID, in fact, revealed some opportunities that are in that visible today, and for many consumers, it became very visible that they don't want to come back to the previous reality. They expect, in fact, as we could see in the last month Ipsos report, that 85% of the consumers, they want to have the better, different versus before. They want to have the world which is more environmentally friendly, more sustainable. They expect that from the producers. They expect that from everything around. So, and 72% expect that they can change their life. So they became more ready. We, in this context, as a group of companies of Danone, having sustainability in the heart of what we are doing in DNA, we can see that there are more opportunities for us, being like catalyst of change. Making the changes faster. Obviously, it's not about doing that at the same time, everything, but that allows us, that gives us like enabler to do it even faster. So for me, this acceleration happens.
Oh, great to hear, actually, because I always hear complaints that we're trying to do something, but it's not fast enough. Agata, what do you think?
Yes, I guess that when it comes in general, to act on scarcity resources, on climate change, and all the main global challenges, for sure we need to act quickly. And I completely agree that COVID, in a way, can accelerate the progress and the change. But of course, we know that there are voices that are telling that it will be complicated. Yeah, that in a way COVID will stop or will slow down the transition to circular economy. But for me, this just cannot be for us, especially for sustainable business, for responsible business. It just mustn't be an easy and convenient excuse to slow down. So we need to do our best to work on this transition and work faster than we have been. And I also think that this time, especially the time of lockdown, showed consumers that they can live in a different way, that they can slow down, that they can have another consumer behavior, that they can change their pattern of consumption. And I guess that also the power of change is in people, is in consumers. So business and consumers just need to unite the front and act together. And I really believe this will be something that will change the reality that we are in right now, no matter if COVID is there or is not.
I think I agree with what Agata is saying, that for me as an entrepreneur, also everything that happens around you, you always have to see the chances that are in these changes. And I think what is nice or what is good about what is happening is that it gave us the time and the moment to stop and look around and think, okay, what are we doing? So I think it gives us a really big opportunity that people have felt and experienced, that they can slow down, just like Agata said, and then stop and think, why were we in this rat race? Why are we running and using more materials, drinking more stuff, doing more? And now we realize, okay, it's not about doing more, but maybe it's about doing better. So the world is slowing down. It seems like at some point every transition or evolution has stopped a little bit because of COVID, but I don't think it's going to stop the circular economy, because this is something we have to go, and I think most people realize now there is a path we have to go to. We just have to start walking it.
Yeah.
Dirk,
It's difficult to be the last one because I agree with many of you.
If you're not the last one, we still have Dion with us.
Yes.
I know that Dion.
On the left side. Yes, of course.
The screen, he's up
Of course. I agree with many things. I mean, obviously the pandemic has been enormous change in many sectors and in many fields. It offers opportunities, as you said, for entrepreneurs, but also for businesses, but also for global world problems that we are facing. I think that if it comes to circular economy and sustainability in a broader aspect, I think there are chances, and there are also kind of backdrops that we see. Chances, as you mentioned, people are much more aware, they're much more conscious about the challenges that we are facing as a world, and that has been really brought to them right at their face, much more than before. So this is definitely an eye-opener, or let's say made it very conscious for many people. At the same time, it has also brought more individualism to people. I mean, people, if you are in a crisis, it's yourself and your safety first, and this can also, in the short term, especially, have a negative impact, in my opinion, on circular, because finally you have different priorities at this moment than thinking about the long-term future of our world.
But do you think people are getting more individualistic now because of the COVID? I think you see now that people think, okay, we have to do this together. It's what all these governments say: together, stay safe together, use your face masks so that we can protect each other and our elderly. So I don't believe it's totally true that people get more individualistic because of
I think it's basically both. I mean, you see community sense and empathy and togetherness. At the same time, you see when people are in a crisis, you think first about yourself and your own family safety. And on the short term, you have to survive. And I think those are chances, but also challenges that we have as a circular movement to promote this.
Dion, what do you think about
Thank you very much. A lot has been said, of course, but what I can add to that is what we've experienced in this last 6 months is that from a consumer point of view, yes, there is a lot of attention for circularity and sustainability in general. People are so much more aware. A lot of researchers show those figures as well. And we as a company have noticed it as well. So those things are definitely happening. On the other hand, what we do notice is we depend on a lot of research as well. We want to move on and go further in our circularity. And those developments depend a lot on universities, subsidies, and those triggers actually are becoming more difficult in these times. So on one hand, there's a pull from the market, but for us it's not easy to continue our developments and research as before. So that's what we've noticed.
What do you think, who should really push into the change? It should be business, entrepreneurs, or politicians, or consumers. If you have to pick one, don't tell me that all of them, but because we know that, of course, it needs cooperation. But let's say, who could have the biggest change in a short-term perspective, let's say, yes? Because as well, we love to talk about education, how much we need education of society, but it's really long-term, it's difficult, but we need change now.
Good question.
So how we can do it, and who should trigger that?
Then COVID is the best example, because who triggered the whole thing that everybody stays at home? The government.
You
They
think that
said
the government?
we have to lock down, we have to stop, and what does everybody do? They listen and stop.
Yeah, and
If there's one that can do it fastest, then they're going to be government.
Because it's just an open question, we don't need to statement by statement, but just like think about it and tell me what you think.
I think you have an opinion, right? I saw it in your eyes.
No.
Dion, maybe you can tell now, to not be last.
Yeah. Totally. We do hope that governments push it and promote it. They have the tools and the power. You've seen it especially in Holland. You've seen it in the electrical car industry. The government has provided the opportunity to grow this sector hugely in the Netherlands, and whether that's the right thing to do is another question. But for certain industries, circularity should and could be pushed by the government tremendously. I totally agree with Ricco.
If I may just building on that, happy you if you can count on your government to activate it firstly. There are governments that are thinking long run and they are early birds in that movement. But I believe in my home country we should, as a business, become the catalyst of this change. Then obviously it does not neglect the role of governments and the consumers later, right? But I believe we should take that lead on it as a business to take the lead, being the catalyst of the change, and obviously then creating together, firstly, maybe alliance within the business, between the businesses, and provoking sometimes the governments to take responsibility, to subsidize maybe something, or to somehow coordinate it later, or at least building like legislation, which is supportive and not slowing down the change.
Perfect. Agata, because you are kind of the leading.
And I must totally agree with Marek. I had the same reflection when you were guys discussing Dion and Ricco, and I was like, no, it's not like that. It's not like that in some countries where the governments are less entrepreneurial than in other countries. This is the business that needs to take I would say the lead and the main responsibility of this change, and we can really be that trigger. And I agree, we need to act together. And I really believe that this is the way in Poland that we should do it. That we need to push it. We need to kick it off and inspire our government. Yeah, and inspire politicians and other stakeholders to go our way and also support us, because we know, everybody knows that we cannot do it by ourselves. It cannot be just business, as you said.
Actually, I just noticed that we have funny split of our panelists. We had 3 Dutch and 3 Polish. So we have shown completely two different perspectives.
I'm long enough in Poland to know that we should not count on the government to drive the change. We can only choose one, you said, in sense of those 3. I still want to smuggle a bit and basically also give have the consumer to be part of that. I mean, if they demand from companies a change, it will certainly moment happen. I mean, for me, it's a little bit chicken and egg story, what I see often. If the large companies like Danone and IKEA start offering it, then means that it becomes mainstream, and people who are not have been constantly demanding that are starting to use it. At the same time, you also need a group of consumers who is driving the change and who is basically pushing the barrier further and or higher. And so I think the push and pull strategy both is very needed. The consumers will push the companies, and the companies will bring it to the consumers back, and I think this interaction is very essential.
I also have a question for you, Dirk, because first of all, how we can convince consumer and how we really educate about circular economy, because you're dealing on everyday basis with communication. And I see that it's a little bit difficult topic. We know kind of enthusiastic about it, but still when we want to spread the message, at least in Poland, not many people understand it actually. So do you have maybe golden trick?
I think it's a little bit the story that I also brought last year on the circular economy 1 year ago on the conference. I think we have to make it mainstream. If you want to, we have to make it mainstream with companies like Danone and IKEA, who are mainstream companies. It has been too long in a niche environment, and the moment large companies and mainstream companies start acting and start moving, then something is happening. You see that a little bit, to make a sidestep with the protein-based food, the meatless meat, let's say. This has been for a long time somewhere pending. The moment a few large chains or restaurant chains started to make moves on that, it all of a sudden goes incredibly fast. And so I think this is an essential thing that mainstream companies like you are picking up on that.
Yeah, maybe ask Dion, you want to add?
Governments should, but we still need government, like the example that Dion gave with the electric car in the Netherlands. We still need a strong government, and maybe then for Poland we need to talk through Europe, and that Europe gives us the rules. We need strong government to also maybe give the consumers a financial incentive, like you said earlier, to repair. And yesterday we had a discussion where they said, okay, maybe we need to void taxes for repairing, so that repairing gets cheaper. So maybe you should give a tax or a financial incentive to the consumer, because the consumer is also going to look at his wallet and say, okay, if I can buy cheap meat at the grocery store and the vegetable option is more expensive, then some people don't have the option to choose for the expensive, durable, sustainable version.
And I maybe ask Dion, because when I look at your history of your business development, it sounds like a pretty great success. So how did you manage to convince so many people to buy your sustainable denim jeans? Is it, you have some kind of advice for us?
To be very honest, we might seem very big, but we're not yet. So we might have a bigger face than what we are in reality. I mean, in the comparison to the whole denim industry, we're still quite small. But nonetheless, we've reached a lot of people. And how did we do that? It's a lot of storytelling, and indeed being transparent, being true about what you're saying and what you're doing, and that's what really helped us to convey the message. But of course, we've come now to a point, and that's what everybody's sort of touched on already, is how to reach the mainstream people, and that's volume. And like you said before, if you have to choose one pillar that has to do the change, it's still collaboration between all the parties, so environment, government, companies, and consumers. And indeed, in our case, I don't know if Agata is aware of it, but we're having a development program with IKEA to generate indeed volume for our brand together with IKEA. So those can definitely be drivers.
Thank you, Dion.
Okay, can I add something to what you guys said about the consumers? I think that sometimes we really overestimate the education part, meaning that, of course, building the awareness is very important, but we need to remember that consumers do not act in a general rule rationally. So it is not enough to just explain that acting sustainably, taking sustainable and responsible purchase choices is something that they should do, because they do not act like that in general, in most of the cases. So we need to be very smart, and here I really agree with you that making something mainstream makes it easy, makes the change easy, and makes it easy to consumer to choose, because there are, for example, only or most of the options are sustainable. So you don't need to think, you just take the product from the shelf, you just order the service from I don't know, from your smartphone. Yeah? Anyway, so what I want to say that we need to be wise and we need to be very smart when it comes to choosing the proper benefits of the offer that we want to sell to the customers. Sometimes we can make people to do the good, responsible, sustainable choices by not communicating the sustainable benefits of the products or of the service. So that's what I would like to add to what you guys said. Yeah?
It's a little bit to make, again, a similarity with the meatless meat, or let's say the vegan meat. If you call it vegan meat, many people don't want it. If you just call it burger without whatever, you don't emphasize on that, people are quite interested, that we see. So I think this is also, not everybody wants to change the world. They want the good product, and it's not necessarily the main reason for choosing it.
As I'm saying, I think that should be like very combined. On the one hand side, creating very appealing consumer offer, but underneath, we may plug in some benefits linked with circular economy. So for me, it's like, okay, I'm from Danone, but this is not only about dairy, it's essential dairy and plant-based business. And what grows the fastest today, it's about plant-based, no doubt. And hence you are not saying it's only for vegans, but this is for all the consumers. Good for you, good for the planet, right? And this is something that we are promoting really, and our consumers, they love it across Europe, right? Then the same on education or communication side, although, I believe that we need to make it somehow in appealing way, the part of the communication. This is what we're trying these days, for example, doing that at Nutri-Score. So conveying the messages about, well, nutritional values of the product, putting that up on front of the pack. It's not our system, it's very objective system created in Europe through the experts. But once we are conveying these messages, it's again, transparent communication with consumers, but not going too much technically into what's behind it.
Yeah. So I guess that we just need to remember that we need to take care of those that don't care and of those that do care.
Okay, so following this sentence, because you both are from big corporates, yes, and you have like big value chains as well, yes, a lot of partnership. How do you see the cooperation with like the other companies in your value chains? Do you try to influence somehow to change into more sustainable, circular way? How you do that? And do you see the willingness from the other side of your partners which provide you goods to your everyday operation to really operate smarter and wiser and sustainable?
I should start. Okay. Well, for many years at IKEA, we work with INNOWO standard. This is a special standard code of conduct for our suppliers. And in the INNOWO standard, there are sections, of course, that are connected, let's say, to the safety and health of the coworkers, and regarding the wages and so on. So, like safety and security of the coworker in the company and the supplier. But there is also a part connected to the environment, the criteria that each supplier of IKEA needs to meet to work with us, to cooperate with us. So this is I would say that this is our basic tool to influence the suppliers. And I guess that some new suppliers, when they are started to work with INNOWO and implementing the rules in their companies, some of them immediately discovered that there are benefits of having these rules at their facilities. Because of course I just need to add this, that there are also suppliers that are already meeting the standards, so they don't need to work to implement different actions to be compliant with INNOWO. But those that cannot meet them from the very beginning, they really then after implementation they are discovering that this is something that helps to drive the business. So I guess that's the basic tool.
Marek, how is it with Danone?
Well, in our case, although we are the part of the group, your group, we have been here in Poland for last 30 years, having factory, producing dairy products, 99% out of the milk, which is, these products are sourced from, comes from Polish local farmers. And 85% of them, we have like the history of more than 15 years. Then we've been working with them on more sustainable solutions over these times, just through the system of education loans to let them innovate. You know the history of maybe sorry ladies, you better, knowing that local condition of the agriculture in Poland, but over like the last 2 decades, a lot of change. And so this is our contribution to that on one hand side. On the other hand side, in that very short run, during COVID, many things, many corporations, many companies like us, they noticed that we need to change the approach from efficiency first, in a sense of the sourcing. So, okay, find the right price at the right value, to sometimes safety first, because we need to, in a COVID conditions, just make sure that we have continuity of supply, and that goes simultaneously with the other element, which is proximity first. So looking for the suppliers which are from sustainability perspective even better, because it is not about long distances, but locally sourcing that, having a backup, okay, that may provoke higher costs, obviously, but from both angles or from many angles, it's much better solution for all the stakeholders, I believe.
So actually, my next question will be a little bit also connected with what you said at the end, because we're talking that circular economy, it's more, should be developed more on local basis, yes? In a very regional, local basis. And do you think that we should completely go local, or we should keep a little bit of globalization? How we can deal with that? Because now actually COVID also shows us a little bit that the globalization could be dangerous, yes, for us. But how we can balance that? Or we should balance, or we should go totally local? I don't know, maybe Ricco, Dirk, maybe you can tell something now.
It's a good question. I think what you were saying in your question is the most important part. We need to balance it, because maybe we went a little bit too far. I'm sure we went too far with shipping sea loads of containers from China with cheap stuff and just dumping it here on the market, and people can buy whatever they want. Cheap shit, to use some frank words. Sorry for that. But I think that's just a problem, because shipping stuff around the whole world is not going to work in the long run. All these huge boats that are traveling this stuff around use so much fuel, which is so bad if you look at sustainability. And if you want to be circular in a product way, so for Danone, when you eat stuff, it's different, of course, but in a product way, you have to keep repairing it. And if you want to repair stuff in a high-end way, you will have to have local repair shops with people who have the knowledge how to repair the product that you have. And in that way, you're going to become a little bit more local than you are now. And I think that is a good thing. But you're going to need stuff from other parts of the world which you might not have locally. Or could we create a Europe, if we would keep it into Europe, which is so sustainable that with all the materials we have, we can make anything we want. If you look at vertical farming in Amsterdam, in theory, every city could make its own vegetables. So maybe it could be, in the long run, everything local.
I think what could happen is that you have global companies who provide knowledge and technology, and maybe in the future with 3D printing going further, that things can be produced or assembled locally with as much as possible local and regional resources, but that the knowledge and behind that can come from a broader field. I don't think we will go back to 50 or 80 years ago, where everything was done locally, where you had the local all local producers. I don't think we will go back to that, but there will be definitely, that's what I believe, a stronger drive for local resourcing, as you said, with dairy, with food products for sure, but also with non-food. But it might be that there will be new business models coming up, that not the products are coming from far, but the knowledge is coming from far. And that you have a kind of franchise concepts that you have producers locally, where the concepts are being brought to those local producers.
That's exactly what our business model is now currently, that we try in the Netherlands, use the Netherlands as a market to test out stuff, just like this recycled linoleum, for instance, develop the technologies for furniture, high-end furniture based on these waste materials, and then go look for partners around the world and tell them, okay, you guys have this waste material, we think with our technology you can make this product out of it, and then teach them how to do it, sell them the machines, the materials, and then say, okay, now you guys can start locally producing with the local waste you have and make high-end furniture. And if you would have these little pop-ups everywhere in the world within like a 300-kilometer radius, and if you teach everybody to recycle their own waste materials, which they have locally, into high-end products, that in that business model, like you said, that's a business model which is going to be perfect to spread this knowledge. That, in the Netherlands, we are investing a lot in to develop that, of course. We are lucky with our government, I think.
Yeah,
if I listened to you guys
Believe
earlier.
me, you are. Dion, maybe you want to add something to that, local or global?
I would call it regional in our case. I understand Enrico's approach to have a local production and a local system and be able to spread it out over the world. But we have a similar approach. We don't want to collect jeans here, ship it to Asia, have fabrics made there, ship that back, etc. That's not an option at all. So we have a similar approach as Enrico, and it's what Dirk said in sense of franchising. So first, set up our business model. We do it regional, so we use Spain and Tunisia to cover the European market, and then hopefully be able to expand that to different parts of the world as a franchise model.
If you let me just building further on it. So in Danone, in food it's easier, you may say, because food is all about local. So we adapt locally our taste to the local consumer needs. And in fact, that's the case. But even in food, once we moved a lot to local sourcing, there are some constraints. Come on, difficult to imagine that you will source vanilla instead of Madagascar or wherever from Poland. So we do our best, for example, to convince the consumers, maybe you can switch from homogenized cheese with vanilla to homogenized cheese plain with Polish origin or Polish ingredients. But this is the way that we need to take on that journey. Not only us, we might be prepared, but after a certain moment, there is a business decision. Is it really worth it pushing that further because consumers are changing or not changing? Simply what they want. So we need to take on this journey the consumers, and they need to simply join us. So coming back to your first question, or the second one, that who is in that equation important, who should start? Maybe we should start, but we should take the other stakeholders on the journey, not only consumers, but our governments as well, to help us on it.
Yeah. You want to add something?
I would say for short run, more like local. Than global or local, and I'm thinking exactly about what you are saying, that some resources, some materials, some knowledge is not here, is out there, and thinking about the country economy, we of course need to take care that the economy is on. It needs to be sustainable, but it needs to, of course, be on. And also thinking about, taking care of people who are co-workers and they need money, they need to, live. Yeah. So we also, I also think that this local model is a way of, might be a way of a transition step to going more local, but we need it also for the people's sake and their, let's say, financial safety. So that's what I think. Yeah.
Regarding the global local, I give you kind of interesting example, because I know 3 years ago I've been in Sweden and I met like a super interesting startup, and they print the textiles, the dresses, trousers on the 3D printer. And the idea of business model was that they they put some kind of booth or like small, I know, shops at the airport. And then I go to the airport without any luggage, nothing. And I go to them. I pick from the catalog what I want to wear at the place when I flying. For example, I know New York. So they, measure me and they printed everything on the place of my destination. And it's, they said it's fully biodegradable and, it's cheap because it's not need so CO2, no need so fuel so much, the planes are lighter. I don't know, the idea seems for me very crazy, but interesting. I don't know how they developed it further, but, I think this is also about circular economy. The minds change, yes, completely put something up and down, which we couldn't even imagine that it's possible to happen. And I think the problem as well, which I think company faces, because there's a lot of innovation, a lot of great ideas with the scaling up. I think Ricco, maybe also you can tell about it, how we can scale it up. For example, we have Fairphone. Great idea in Holland when you have completely everything you can change. It's one modular phone, let's say. But how it could compete with Samsung? How it could compete with iPhone, with such big, great R&D centers which they have, with such big money which they have, yes?
I don't really believe that these big companies are so good in innovation as they sometimes perceive to be. I think we need smaller entrepreneurs who make the concepts like, for instance, we do, and then we have to reach out to the larger producers, for instance, to IKEA, and then tell them, okay, we are outside of the big, large business, and that's why we can think a little bit more flexible, a little bit more creative. We invented this stuff. Can we work together with you to make it into this mass? Because you also said earlier, we need these products to be in a mass scale and availability, and I think we should use the market players which are already in place. We don't need large new corporations, because there are large enough corporations everywhere around the world already. We need to have a good business model in how to work together with these companies and get all this knowledge we have. Because, for instance, the smartphone, because you said Apple earlier, the smartphone, the iPhone, was the last genius thing that Apple invented, and that was because Steve Jobs was still there. After Steve Jobs died, what's the big new invention Apple ever made? They make the same phone every year, and then you pay €1,000 for it, and it's just a little bit better camera, a little bit smarter technology. But there are no more new groundbreaking stuff that they're doing, to be honest, if I look at their product catalog.
I think if I add to that, I think this, what you say, that smaller companies, incubators, what you see with many multinationals and global companies is that they have within their structures, incubators, they give a lot of freedom to them. They clearly separate them from their normal R&D and their normal business, and they give the freedom to develop and to play in the lab and so on and so on. Shell was doing that, and I don't know, probably you doing the same. And if that's where the innovation comes from, and I think more and more multinationals are seeing that innovation is essential for that future. So they start to have it in-house, but they can also find it externally with they can also find it externally with startups, of course, etc. But I think what will happen is that more and more multinationals will invest in that on their own, and they will drive innovation.
I don't believe in that way, because innovation doesn't work like that. Innovation works, I studied innovation science in Eindhoven, and innovation works in like a network in a way that also nature works. So innovation works in the same way, that the same principles as the Darwin evolutionary theory. So the only way we can really innovate is if you make a large group who is trustworthy enough of each other to make these developments together. So I have to, for instance, if I give my idea to IKEA, I should trust IKEA that they're going to give me something back for that idea. So you have to have a network of people who trust each other, which is dense. And for instance, if I want to work with mud jeans, we need to trust each other to make this business. So if we make a really dense network of this innovation, then all these smaller parties can work together, and then I think innovation thrives. Because if you're a company, IKEA, you have this separate innovation lab, and these guys are going to sit in this room and think, okay, what product are we going to develop for IKEA? Then they might lose out on what's going on outside. Of course, I oversimplify it now, but I don't think you should say...
Yeah, but Agata...
well, I'll let Agata answer firstly.
I just want to say that we do not work in this bad way. We do work with innovation in a way you are describing. So we are connecting.
It was not a criticism to you. It was just.
No. I'm proud of it. So I want to say.
That are you open for such cooperation? For example, with Ricco Mation, can he approach you and talk about this?
Of course, of course. Yeah, but this is the exactly way how we work. The exact way how we work with innovation. So of course. We work with Space 10, so this special lab, and we also invest and talk to companies that have these innovative ideas, and also we talk to startups. So that's how we do it. We know that, let's say, we are kind of the business that, how to say it, there are others that do it even better. So why not to use them? Why not to go,
the best then, from your point of view?
Who is doing the best, meaning the innovation?
Yeah, who's better than you guys? Because you say I know a few which are probably better.
I would say that smaller companies, because or smaller entrepreneurs, because they are much quicker.
Yeah, flexible.
Yeah, and much more flexible than we are. So that's why this is, I would say, more complicated, or it goes slower. It might go slower if we would like. Big IKEA would like to be an incubator. That
doesn't work. No, you have your role in the whole ecosystem of the supply chain.
Of course, we are supporting innovative solutions and this entrepreneurial spirit within our teams and within our coworkers. We do that, and we also use the ideas from our coworkers, and try to help them to realize those ideas, to test those ideas. But this is other kind, let's say, of the activity that we do when it comes to innovations. But in general, I agree that is the idea, to do it, and that's what we are trying to do, to work in this way.
Anyone want to add something to this?
Please, yes. Well, in fact, in our case, it's like 3 points are important for us. So firstly, put growth and innovation in the heart, because that gives us more space, also from sustainability perspective. And this is around our vision, One Planet, One Health. So this is around that. To get there, we need the growth. And while the teams are briefed that, okay, we look for that growth, sustainable growth. Then we realize that we are not perfect. And then somehow we need to, on top of our normal way of thinking, dedicate teams to that different way of working, like startup like. So we had on different divisions, product divisions, some teams which are working like separate companies. And last but not least, very much interested in cooperation with startups outside, because we realize that sometimes we are missing either know-how or this entrepreneurial spirit firstly. Always you can fierce it, you can build on it, you can grow it within the company, you can put it behind the values, but there are some always limits. So very open towards different points of view and different ideas, guys. So why not to move it together?
Work together, yeah. It's the only way to go. Yeah. Also, if you think circular.
Dion, maybe I can ask you about, because you said that you're really willing also to expand. What do you see now as the biggest barrier to expand?
It's volume, and because we need to make impact, and for that you want volume. So that's our biggest challenge, and that's why it's interesting also the setting of this meeting that we're having now. You have on one hand you have Danone and IKEA, which are like the giants, and then you have us and Ricco, which are like the tiny players on the other end. But it's true that we can learn so much from each other, and on the other hand also benefit from each other, because we as innovators, it's the essence of our existence actually to be innovative, because that's where our business thrives on. But the other companies like IKEA and Danone, they have the market. So if there's a way to collaborate, it's only beneficial for both parties, I would say. So yeah, to answer your question, volume is needed to make impact, and like I said, I can imagine Agata is not aware of all projects that are going on in IKEA, but we've been working already with your team for over a year on the product, and we've learned a lot from the people from IKEA, and I'm sure the other way around it has been the case as well. So that is possible.
Great to hear. So guys, we have like last 5 minutes. So I ask you the last questions. What is for you circular economy? And if you can tell everyone, just have a minute to think about it, just to say like 1, 2, maybe 3 sentences, just reaching the point, what is for you and maybe why you are so enthusiastic about circular economy. So who wants to start?
If I can start off.
Please.
It's producing and consuming without any waste, so no impact. That's the optimum form of circular economy.
Is it possible, you think? No waste, zero waste? Or is it...
Yeah.
Dirk?
For me, the circular economy is the logic and only way to go forward. I mean, finally, there's no choice. And so sooner or later, this will work out. And it's a process of 5, 10, 20 years. But this is the only way to go forward and the only way to be able to live with 7 billion people on this earth. So that's for me circular economy.
Ricco?
I couldn't have said it better than my Dutch friend here next to me. I would change the question and say, what do you hope circular economy will bring? Then I would say, I hope it can bring more equality into the world. Because if we change the way that we consume and that we use our materials and how we eat, then I think in the long run we will also have a more equal world, and then it will be better for everybody in the long run.
Agata?
Yeah, of course I agree. But also I look at circular economy as a way we know right now, the best that we know right now, because maybe in some years we will know some other model. But today is the best way we know to tackle the challenges of unsustainable consumption and resource scarcity. And on the other hand, I also believe that circular economy has the enormous potential to kick off the entrepreneurship within people and to create innovation and to help people to develop in a sustainable manner. So that's...
Marek, what is for you?
For me, why it is important? Firstly, no other choice. As a human beings, we have no other choice than heading for it. Secondly, for my company, the mission One Planet, One Health, it's materializing. So this year we've been listed as the first French company as l'entreprise à mission, means going like it's like counterpart of B Corp, B Corp certified company, and we are heading to be certified by 2030 as a B Corp, as a global company. And here in Poland for waters, I believe in 2021, and for dairy, essential dairy and plant-based for 2022. So like joining force for good to make it more circular.
For me, if I may add, because for me it's also like building the social relation, I would say. Because in globalization world, we're very competitive, we're a little bit alone, let's say, on our way. And circular economy bring us a little bit together and help us to bring this connection, partnership, cooperation, and just a great society again. And this is also helpful for me from the human being perspective, you know, as a person who love people, who, you know, take energy from people, that it's also a good way for rebuild our society and network. So I think that's it for now.
You're doing a good job. Also bringing all these people together and getting all these
Sure.
people
You
online.
are.
So that's a compliment to you.
Thank you very much. I think we have very interesting mix of people. Thank you to joining us and thank you supporting. And I think we just at the end of our panel, at the end of our conference, at the end of our circular week. So it was kind of very intensive, inspiring, and I hope that you also enjoying. So I hope you see you next year. I think we will have a lot to do now during this coming few months to develop further the circular economy concept and talk a little bit more about practical angle and show the real great scale up solution. So thank you very much. I hope that you enjoyed as much as we are here. I think, yes.